ako, and welcome to the Naleo TV County Council Candidate Podcast, here to inform you of your options ahead of our August 8th primary elections. I'm your host, Makana Waikiki, and I'm here with District 6 candidate Jason Masters. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Mahalo for coming in all the way from Ka'u. How was the drive?
It was a beautiful drive today.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. I'm glad you got here safely. Let's jump right in.
Okay.
Tell us all about yourself and what motivated you to run for County Council.
Well, my name is Jason Masters. I was born and raised in Council District 6. I grew up in Wauhinu in the district of Ka'u. I attended local schools, Na'alehu Elementary School. I graduated from Ka'u High School. I attended USC, earned a bachelor's in environmental studies, a master of planning, a master of public administration. I was a city planner for about 15 years. And the reason I wanted to run, back in high school in the 90s, the sugar plantation was closing down in Pahala. But I was fortunate to do legislative shadowing, first with our then state representative Andy Levin, and the following year with the late state senator Bob Herkes. And they really taught me the importance of representing the people, providing a voice for them, and really bringing these scarce resources from the state and even the federal government to lowly Ka'u. And also the importance of listening to our constituents to make sure that the priorities reflect the people's will. So.
Absolutely, I love that. Such a great Huaka'ian journey that you took to get here. Let's jump a little bit deeper on your values. So what are the values that guide your decision making and would ultimately shape your work on the council?
So I think growing up in Ka'u, we're a very tight-knit community. It's important to listen, to understand whether it's the kupuna or the keiki or everyone in between, to understand what people's priorities are, and that as their council person, it's not what's important to me, but what's important to everyone. And so my job is to be able to provide resources for our community and for our constituents, so that we can all thrive and prosper.
Love that. Okay. So you said and mentioned that you have a background in city planning.
Correct.
Let's jump into infrastructure real quick.
Okay.
So Hawaii County faces major infrastructure needs across our island, including federally mandated wastewater improvements, aging facilities, roads, parks, and public buildings. How would you prioritize these investments and decide where taxpayer dollars are spent?
So one, you're definitely correct. Hawaii Island has the greatest number of cesspools in the state, and so that's a huge undertaking. While I think it's going to be difficult, I know the mayor recently said it might not be attainable by the deadline. I think it's something we need to continue to work towards. In Pahala, they're currently undergoing that. They're going to be doing the wastewater treatment plant soon, which itself might provide some other opportunities for the community. Our roads are in extreme disrepair. I think there's a lot of traffic safety measures that could be implemented. When I was the acting senior management analyst, I was in charge of the city's traffic engineer, and so I got to see how that process unfolded. I was in charge of tens of millions of dollars in federal funding to help for safe routes to schools and other highway improvements. I think some simple measures like daytime running light sections so that when people are passing they can see the oncoming vehicles. I think more right and left turn lanes so that it reduces traffic congestion and also makes it safer for the drivers on the road. There's a lot of priorities, and so it's because Council District 6 is so large and diverse, I don't want to single anyone out. I think different parts of our huge district, it's the largest in the state, have their own priorities, and I think we need to do all of them at the same time. And so, I think public safety is important, but I think federally mandated things are also something that we need to follow.
Mahalo. I learned a little bit in there. Thank you so much. You talked about managing federally delivered funds and things that you got in part of your career before this. Let's talk about the county budget. That's a big thing that we've got to focus on. So the county faces significant financial challenges, as we can see, including a projected budget shortfall in the coming years. When resources are limited and close to none. How would you set priorities when all of these needs are obviously happening in our district?
Right. Well, I think first we need to make sure that our funds are being used appropriately, that they're not being wasted. Um, we have so many priorities, both in Ka'u and the rest of Council District 6. It's important that we bring the resources to our constituents, whether it's the easier things. Ka'u doesn't have any lights at any of the ball fields. The football team can't play football games. In Na'alehu, it's really the gathering place. We don't have any lights. So I think those kind of things aren't as funding dependent as something bigger like highway improvements, which might be millions of dollars. I think it's important to get the low-hanging fruit first and the things that are easy to achieve, but also at the same time to keep your eyes on the horizon. I'm a fisherman, and we want to see what's happening and plan for the long term. If we can have economic development, that'll help, that's respectful to our community. It'll help to raise funds and ultimately taxes that hopefully will pay for the things that we need.
Mahalo. So you mentioned a little bit there at the end, the taxes. Would you consider raising taxes or fees to accommodate our budget shortfall?
That is not something that I am currently interested in pursuing. I think the thing about taxes is there's many different types of different taxes. I think on the opposite end that we need to incentivize more agriculture and food production, and that while we might lose some taxpayer dollars initially, I think in the long term, the sustainable economic growth that it would contribute would outweigh that loss in taxpayers. So.
Absolutely. Mahalo. Let's talk about that economic opportunity in rural communities, but also just across our island. Many residents are concerned about the rising cost of living and the lack of those opportunities. What industries, investments, or policies would you specifically support to strengthen Hawaii Island's economy and create opportunities for local families?
So I think, my whole life we've been very tourism dependent, and I think that's something I don't want to say shift away from, but not focus on as much. I think we really need to work on food independence and food security, really focusing on our farmers, our ranchers, our fishermen, maybe creating food co-ops, encouraging more local agricultural production. The state only has less than a week's supply on the shelves at any time. I think that we need to look at value-added products. So for the food that we do produce, if there's ways to bring sustainable industry to our rural areas that don't require, an Amazon warehouse level development, but something that, so we have, at least in Ka'u and other parts of Council District 6, we have existing buildings that could be revitalized for such purposes. I think as council person, that's our job, is to work with private and nonprofit enterprises to be able to bring those types of industries. And so, and things that, again, aren't so tourism dependent. We need to feed ourselves first. We need to work on affordable housing, but ultimately sustainable economic development. So.
Mahalo. Let's talk about affordable housing real quick.
Okay.
That becomes also one of the bigger things that constituents bring up. As it remains one of the biggest concerns, what actions can the county realistically take in moving us forward and creating more housing opportunities while also maintaining the character and resources of individual communities?
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned character. So some of the things the council's done recently I don't necessarily agree with. I think that the effort is to provide more opportunity for housing, but ultimately it might end up raising land values and home prices and creating what they call forever renters. I think it's really important. One, we have a huge list of Hawaiian homeland. My neighbors have been on there my whole life. I think that, I know it's a state agency, but I think as county council person, it's our job to help advocate for, our communities and certainly, the beneficiaries that have been on the list for decades. I think public-private partnerships as applicable to help incentivize home developers to provide affordable housing so that they don't need to make so much money selling the house, because if we can provide such incentives from the county, then we can get people in homes and hopefully help them attain home ownership.
Love that. Mahalo. So when we're thinking about people trying to purchase a home, insurance in specific areas has definitely come up and become sort of like a block or a challenge. We know that comes from the disasters that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. As we continue to navigate wildfire, storms, volcanic activity, Tutupele was going off today, what should the county do to better prepare communities and strengthen that resilience?
So I helped my mom we have the Na'alehu Resilience Hub. So this past weekend we had the Vibrant Hawaii Annual Summit. I believe this is the 5th one we've attended in a row now. A key theme at all of those summits has been disaster preparedness and response. And I recently completed in Na'alehu the Community Emergency Response Team workshop. I think we need to help residents attend these kind of things. A lot of times they're not, it seems like it's the same people always attending. And if the county could help lead to bring residents to be more actively involved in both disaster preparedness and response, that way when things do happen, people know what to do. So for example, us with the Na'alehu Resilience Hub, we have a chainsaw team, so we've done training. So we grew up in Ka'u, people know how to use a chainsaw, but they gave us protective gear, helmets, and taught us how to actually do it the right way. I wish I could remember the name of the company, but they're island-wide, that taught us how to actually do it properly. And so these are the kind of, free or cheap things that the community can provide to help people, so that in Ka'u, we really pride ourselves on taking care of ourselves and on each other. And so if the neighborhood and our communities can be prepared for these disasters, then we can then respond afterwards. So.
Love that. Yes, chainsaws. Oh my gosh, I want to be part of that group. I love that. So let's talk about that a little bit. Communication, engagement, transparency, that's something we hear a lot, especially during candidate racing. Creating public trust has always been something I think people are questioning, right? How does local government rebuild pilina and trust with residents who feel disconnected from its decision making?
So I think the first, and I probably mentioned this before, I think the first step is really listening, like actively listening, not just waiting to speak and respond, taking notes, and being responsive, so that when people ask for something, we're able to, we don't always have the answers immediately, but if we can get those answers, a lot of the issues that our communities and our island faces don't have easy answers. It will take time, and that's okay. That's part of the process. But we need to not tell people, oh, we're going to take care of it, and then they don't hear anything for a year. I think transparency is critical. I know in Ka'u, people have known myself and our family for a long time, and really recognize the integrity that we have and the respect and the love for our communities. And I think as elected officials, that's really our job, right? So going back to Andy Levin and Bob Herkes, they really had that. People really admired them, and their number one goal was to take care of their communities, and so that's mine also.
Oh, beautiful. As our time is sort of running short here, it's just zoomed by. If elected at the end of your term, what is one accomplishment you hope residents will say that you specifically helped achieve?
Well, I don't think I would be the one installing the lights, but I would certainly like to see lights at Na'alehu and Pahala ball fields and the Pahala swimming pool completed. It's been ongoing, it seems like a decade now. It's a large district. Volcano has different issues and opportunities than Pahala or Na'alehu or Ocean View. I know Ocean View could really use a police station and other things. And I know in South Kona, Miloli'i hasn't had a rubbish dump in a long time. There's a lot of things that need to be done for our diverse communities. And if I could check everything I just said off the list, I think that would be a good success.
Amazing. Okay, well, mahalo for your time. Thank you for coming out today. Good luck on this upcoming candidacy. Wishing you all the best.
Yeah, thank you.
Aloha kako, mahalo. I've been Moakana Waikiki.